Welcome to our 10-minute daily Mashiach thought number 173. The Ilui Nishmas Guta Bas Paret and for a Fur Shleim Mokrava to Tamar Shifra Bas Lilafega. Tonight we begin our third and final section of our Sefer Inyono Shel Moshiach. So we have explored so far the concept of Mashiach in general and also the revelation of Mashiach. And now we come to our third topic, and this third topic is what is called Hiskalos Nitzutz Mashiach, the revelation of the spark of Mashiach. Now, what do we mean by the spark of Mashiach? So to understand this, let's begin with the extract from a Sikha of the Rebbe of the night of Simchas Torah in Tafshin Mem Vav, which is end of 1985. And this is what the Rebbe said at that time. There's hanitzutz hakatan shel Mashiach shebachol echad ve'echad. There's this small spark of Mashiach that is found in every single one of the Jewish people, and that's bechinas yechida shebenishmasai. That's the aspect of the yechida, the highest level of neshama that is within our souls. And what is this nitzutz of the small spark of Mashiach that's within us? Yesh b'kochai, that spark of Mashiach that each of us has within ourselves, has the power lahadlik es kisei hagalus, to actually burn, to light up, or burn down, really, the walls of galus. Kefi shezeh b'mashal b'nitzutz eish kipshutai, just as it is with an analogy when we talk about a spark, we talk about a spark of fire. So a little spark of fire, we know, can burn down entire walls. As we see it, especially here in Australia, we know with the bushfires and the terrible fire seasons that we've had, that the sparks of the fire can light up other fires and literally burn acres and acres of land. So that's the same thing the Rebbe says when we talk about a spark of Mashiach within us. That spark of Mashiach that we have has the power to burn the walls of Gullus. Until it burns them down completely. And then, once the spark of Mashiach within us burns down the walls of Gullus, then automatically, if we burn down the walls of Gullus, then Mashiach is automatically revealed. And that aspect, what is that aspect of Mashiach revealed? That's bechinas yechida haklalis. That's that aspect of that general yechida, as we've spoken about numerous times in our series. And then the Rebbe says, that really even before that, that we know Mashiach is like as if he's standing behind the walls. He's overseeing things and watching through the windows. And he's peeking through the cracks. So he's there just waiting to be revealed. So what do we mean by this? So to give us further insight, this idea that the Rebbe kept saying that each of us has a spark of Mashiach within us. And we've mentioned this earlier in the idea that while Mashiach has influence over the entire Jewish nation and does all the pu'ulos that he does in order to bring us to the final Geula, the Rebbe often stressed the idea that we also have the spark of Mashiach within us, and therefore we are part of that process. We have to do our part, and we are also responsible to bring the Geula. In a more general terminology, we know that the Rebbe always stressed the idea that Torah is milashon hara, that everything in the Torah is there to teach us a lesson in our avodas Hashem. And that means that everything in Torah, even if it's not a specific mitzvah, whether it's a story or whether it's, in other words, a narrative of something that happened in the past, or it's a prophecy of something that's going to happen in the future, including the nevuos, the prophecies about Mashiach coming, all of them, according to the Rebbe, is teaching us how we have to serve Hashem. Because that's the purpose of Torah. It's not a history book. It's not just a book about mitzvahs. It's generally a book about serving Hashem through everything that's in the Torah. And therefore, the Rebbe stresses that when we learn about Geula, and we learn about what the future is going to hold, that's meant also to teach us how we have to act right now. It's telling us something about our avodah. And what we do know is that as the Rebbe's, when the Rebbe became the Rebbe, this was something that the Rebbe stressed from the very first day, from day one of the Rebbe's Messias. This was the Rebbe's central focus on bringing Mashiach, emphasizing in Basi Lagani that we are the Dar HaShvi, we're the seventh generation, and that is what our aim and our mission is to bring Mashiach. And so during these 70 years, and this year we have 70 years of the Rebbe's leadership, what we have is an entire generation that has been educated under the Rebbe's guidance to be soldiers in this army to bring Mashiach. As we mentioned, the Rebbe Rashab started Tamchei Tmimim. In Tamchei Tmimim, he named the students of Tamchei Tmimim Chayalei Bais David, the soldiers of the house of David. In other words, soldiers whose main job was to bring Mashiach. And this becomes the mission of all the shluchim. You know, there's a song that the shluchim sing, Shluchi Adonenu, Lahavi es Mashiach Titkenu. The shluchim of the Rebbe, and what is the job is to bring Mashiach. So this becomes the mission and the reason for everything that we do. It's to spread Torah, to spread Yiddishkeit in order to bring Mashiach. And each period, if we look at the periods of time of the Rebbe's leadership, as each period of time went on from 1951 right up until today, each period of time brought with it a new urgency to this mission. And what we find then is that as we went along each kind of tkufa of the Rebbe, there was more and more emphasis on Mashiach and on bringing Mashiach and what we have to do. So if we look at that specifically, we know that in 1981, that's when it kind of reached a peak where the focus of Mashiach became a very regular topic of the Rebbe's Farbrengens and Sichos. Because in 1981, the Rebbe finally established Tzivos Hashem, which was the Army of Hashem. We know the organization for children, with that emphasis that they are in the Army of Hashem and that goal to bring Mashiach. And from then on, this became a regular topic, with the Rebbe talking about this idea of an aim, a mission to bring Mashiach, with that theme song of "We want Mashiach now." And from then on, the Rebbe was also stressing this notion that it's our job to demand from Hashem, and to cry out to Hashem, and to demand and ask for it, and to plead for Mashiach to come, and to say, Ad Masai, until when are we going to be in Galus? And so too, as the years went on from 1981, each year we saw this emphasis becoming stronger and stronger. So, and the concepts around the revelation of Mashiach becoming more and more explicit. Now, the epitome, the height of this emphasis on Mashiach was in the Rebbe's 90th year, which was between Yud Aleph Nisan of Tafshin Nun Aleph, which was 1991, until Yud Aleph Nisan of Nun Bais, which was 1992. That was the Rebbe's 90th year. And that is when we start seeing with the Rebbe really talking tremendously about Mashiach. That year, the Rebbe said, was a year that Mashiach will be revealed. And the central theme and focus of all the sichos of that year was about Mashiach. The Rebbe was talking about, again, it's the year Mashiach will be revealed, that we are on the threshold of Mashiach, that this is the most opportune time to bring Mashiach. And so the themes of the sichos of that year was all around these areas. And including not just the idea of Mashiach coming and bringing Mashiach, but specifically about what we as Jewish people need to do to bring Mashiach. And that was the central theme all along. Now, when we look carefully at these sichos of that 90th year of Nun Aleph into Nun Bais, we see that there were generally four expressions or four kind of themes that were repeated themselves over and over again during that year. What were those things? So first of all, from Chav Ches Nisan, that very famous Chav Ches Nisan of Nun Aleph, when the Rebbe said that he's giving everything over to us, there the Rebbe talked about this idea of Lahavi Limais Mashiach, that it's up to us to bring these days of Mashiach. So that was the month of Nisan and the month of Iyar that followed. In the month of Tammuz Av and El of that year of Nun Aleph, then Tishrei Cheshvan into Nun Bais, into the very end of 1991, the Rebbe started using the expression not only to bring the days of Mashiach, but the expression of Lichyos in Mashiach, Lichyos imazman imaz Mashiach, that we have to start living with Mashiach. So went from bringing Mashiach to living with Mashiach. Then that was the beginning of Cheshvan. The remainder of Cheshvan into the beginning of Kislev of Nun Bais, which was again leading us at the very end of 1991. The Rebbe started talking about this idea of Bikshus Hashem Elokechem v'es David Malkam, this idea that we need to seek out Hashem and David our king. And that was where the Rebbe started talking about the concept of Kabbalas Pnei Mashiach Zidkenu. And it's our job to actually accept the oath of heaven, to receive the face of Mashiach. So this idea of Kabbalas Malchus, to accept the Rebbe as the Melech, to accept Mashiach as Mashiach. And then what we find is for the remainder of Kislev into the month of Teves of Nun Bais, which is the beginning of 1992, there is when the Rebbe started using the expression that all we need to do is lifkoach et ha'einayim. All we need to do is to open our eyes. So when we look at these four expressions that was built up during that year, right, to bring Mashiach, to live with Mashiach, to accept Mashiach, and then just to open up our eyes. So we can see how it became more and more explicit about Mashiach being revealed. Now, each one of these expressions seem to add on to the other. But the truth is that when you look very carefully at each one of these, they are still very similar. And they really are different expressions of the same main point. And that same main point is this revealing this nitzitz of Mashiach, the spark of Mashiach that is within each of us. And that is what the topic that we're going to explore, because each one of these expressions that the Rebbe was saying is talking about what we have to do to live with Mashiach, what we have to do to accept Mashiach. And that comes from that nitzitz, the power of the spark of Mashiach that we have within each of us. This will be the theme of our next number of Mashiach thoughts.
Thank you, Yashikoi.